Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. Welcome to Screamplay, a show about spooky video games. With your hosts, Tom and John Ryman.
Hey everybody, welcome to Screamplay! It's a story, or podcast story. What the fuck am I talking about? Podcast about spooky video games. I am one of your hosts, John Ryman. And why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
I am the guest co-host, Logan Trent. Tom Ryman is currently in the dark baby place, just getting buried by diapers, trying to find the light out.
I was at their house last night, and it was indeed the dark place. She was not feeling well and not a happy baby. But yeah, he is in the baby place, being, I don't know, a dad. He was just like, she won't stop crying, and I was like, yeah, that happens. It's gonna happen a lot. But yeah, he's just taking a knee to do the dad stuff, and in the meantime, Logan, you were awesome and agreed to be on. And this is our Halloween episode, Halloweenies. Mm-hmm. And if you can't tell by the title, we're doing a repeat of last year, kind of. We're doing Alan Wake 2, of course, from Remedy Games, and Epic Games is the publisher. But Logan, you were on for our last one.
Yeah.
On Alan Wake, and I wrote this on, and this is spoilers, again, spoilers for this year-old game, but we are going to spoil the shit out of this game. But I was, and we'll talk about how we felt in a minute, but I was a little apprehensive about the sequel to this game, just because I was worried that maybe they wouldn't have, the same kind of
the
goofiness.
Vibes.
Yeah, like the goofiness is like, are you guys fucking with me?
Yeah.
Kind of like vibe for this. So when it came out with like 10 out of 10 across the board when it first came out, I was pretty hopeful. But of course, we had to come back and do it again. Tom was like, well, I have a baby now. And I'm like, fuck you. We're doing Alan Wake again. I don't care. This is important. Because this is important work we're doing, Logan.
You shined the flashlight in his eyes and was like, get out of my way.
I did. And I hit R1 to make sure it was focused. And I saw his red little reticle appear, and I shot it. Which is something that happens in the game, guys. I just tried to make a joke out of it, and it wasn't funny. But Logan, you're the guest. You're a wonderful guest, and like you were on this last year, and thankfully for me, like the rest of us, absolutely loved the first game. Well, why don't you? What we're doing is we're sitting in a talk show, and it is in between commercial breaks. Or it's during a commercial break, rather, and we're sitting there talking to the guy from Homeland.
Yep.
And he asks you to, like, hey, what's your life been like, Logan? What's going on with you? and you decide to regale him with a scary story. And man, I guess just tell us a little about this game and tell us a scary story, Logan.
Previously on Alan Wake, Alan was trapped in the dark place while a giant piece of shit FBI agent was walking around that nobody liked whatsoever. Just the scummiest piece of shit. And you know he's a scummy piece of shit because every piece of writing that you find in the first game describes him as a scummy piece of shit.
And he was
named
bald
Nightingale.
and fat and had a tiny dick.
Oh, I like that we were talking about that, and then this time we get confirmation he has a tiny dick, which was an incredible thing. So,
it was so fucking good. But yeah, go on. We'll talk about that in a second. 13 years
after Alan Wake falls into the darkness to save his wife, Alice, and Nightingale falls into who gives a shit because no one cares about Nightingale. Nightingale's nude, bloated corpse body comes out of Cauldron Lake. And that's how you begin this game. You are a giant naked FBI agent corpse just stumbling through the woods. And then you get attacked by cultists and strapped down and they cut out your heart. Perfect opening.
You have no offensive.
10 for 10. No notes.
We'll talk about it, but yes, no notes.
So, because, he's an FBI agent and even though he's a piece of shit, they still kind of have to investigate that. You are a FBI agent by the name of Saga Anderson, and you come to Brighton Falls with your partner who's mysteriously named Alex Casey, like the detective of the Alan Wake books, and he has no sense of humor about that. He hates these books, and he is very pissed off at all jokes relating to that. So he's about to have a very unpleasant time in Brighton Falls. So they go and they do the investigation. And while there, Saga starts to experience weirdness as Alan's writing is starting to leak out again. And this involves her, who previously to her coming to the city's daughter, now being dead, drowning, and her becoming a giant alcoholic, and her having to tell people, no, Ellen, that's not true. That's not what happened, and no one believing her. So, while she's investigating this whole
Except
mystery...
Casey, which is interesting.
What?
Except for her partner,
Except for
which
Casey,
is interesting.
but then he starts to also fall under the spell, because he starts to say, your daughter's dead, and she's like, God damn it, Casey. Yeah. So, she starts to investigate and she unwraps the mystery that is what happened to Alan Wake falling into the dark place. Simultaneously to this, you, as Alan Wake, are in the dark place, and it is just a shadow neo-noir. Like, if Max Payne was a little too bright and sunshiny, this is the darker version of that. And fun, you're also trailing a case by your fictional detective, Alex Casey, who is voiced by Max Payne. So, kind of fun there.
And who plays him, though?
The James McCaffrey, the deceased. Yeah.
I'm talking about the human model.
Oh, the human model is actually the game's writer, Sam Lake. So you have that going on for you.
And he has a perfect face. We'll talk about it. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of it, but
he's got a perfectly withered detective face for a guy who, spoiler for later in this game, wrote an entire musical number in here. So while you're in the dark place, you're trying to investigate this mystery, hopefully with it leading to clues for how you can write your way out of this, because again, you've been trapped there for 13 fucking years. Prior to this game, there was a game called Alan Wake American Nightmare, and it kind of is just an entire game that's a failed attempt to escape from there. So basically, you've just been doing that shit on repeat. And repeat is something that pops up a lot in this game. While you're in the dark place, Saga is also simultaneously investigating your disappearance in the real world, and just it's a lot of back and forth. You get to choose who to play as, Saga or Alan, and I looked up for a guide for the best way to do this narratively because I hadn't played this before, and there's certain ways that you want to pace this, otherwise you're going to spoil shit for yourself. So I would advise that if you're a first-time player to just look up, like, best chapter-wise, like, to play this out. So, yeah, while you're investigating, you keep falling into these story loops, and he keeps mentioning that it's a story loop because he keeps having repetitions. In the Dark Place, he falls into a talk show that is run by the dude from Homeland, who's also Martian Manhunter on the Arrowverse. Yep. So
yeah, he certainly is.
Yeah, and this leads to you having a incredible level that is a musical number involving the gods of Old Asgard.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about that.
That you have to stumble through in one of probably the most fun gaming experiences I've had in a long time. It's just out of nowhere and unexpected and executed perfectly. So eventually, Saga figures out how to bring Alan back. Alan pops up onto the shores, and he's just completely out of it. He has been complaining about this character called Scratch. So Scratch is basically the darkness that resides in Cauldron Lake, and it's taken on Alan's face, and it's what's been terrorizing him for the past 13 years. It's the main villain in Alan Wake American Nightmare.
It's Stephen King's The Dark Half is essentially what it is.
Yeah. So Saga gets Alan out of the lake, and they start talking, and he needs the clicker, which was the Deus Machina from the previous game, and he needs that to kind of get rid of there, except you find out that's actually Scratch. The whole time you've been thinking that there's been some type of time parallel where you're sending stuff into the future or the past and stuff, when really Alan's just been trapped this entire time and Scratch has been running game on you. So it comes up to Alan and Saga having to team together, bring Alan back to the real world, and then figure out a way to end this story, as Alan's story has screwed up Saga's life, screwed up his life, and they just need to find a way to get rid of Scratch and hopefully settle things and save everyone, as Alan says. So there's a lot more details and stuff into it, but honestly, it would be like a 3-hour recap. This is just, go play this fucking game. If you liked the first one at all, it's worth diving into it. If you never played the first one, they did a remaster of it that came out a year ago. That's what we talked about in the previous podcast.
Yeah.
It's a quick play, like maybe like a 10-hour play. Totally worth it. Just do them back to back and you're going to have a good time. So.
Oh my God, you're going to have the best time. And honestly, that was like the quickest you probably could have done a recap of this.
There's too much shit and it's two diverting storylines. And then there's just a bunch of like ridiculous, like. This whole game is based off of a writer trying to write himself out of a nightmare. So you have a bunch of different, like 3 different narratives, and in the game you can change the narratives to kind of fix the level so that you can progress. So it's insane to try to explain it.
Oh man. No, it's literally them trying to write a sequel. Is really what it is. But we'll talk about all that and so much more. But first, in order to do that, we need to go visit a friend of ours? Vincent Price? He's not totally used to you yet. But just give him some time. He's like, where's the smart one?
But he would be in Night Springs.
Where's the smart and talented one? But yes. So let's just dip into the foyer, have a damn fine cup of coffee in the parlor of Spookaboo Manor.
Now I invite you to step inside Spookaboo Manor.
And of course, this is the section where we talk about the spookiness, the booiness, the Halloweeniness of this game. And man, like I said, Logan, you basically did the briefest, hit all the briefest, touchstones you could about this game, because this game is insane. I I fucking love this game. And I put this on Twitter when the game came out. I was so apprehensive about the sequel. And I was like, are they going to be as weird and stupid as the first one? And then this game just came in sliding on its knees, doing an Eddie Van Halen guitar riff. And I was like, this game is fucking awesome. And like, I say that about very few games, but this game is fucking awesome. And,
it would have been fine if they just rested on their laurels and kind of just tried to do another one like they did with like American Nightmare. But no, they got ambitious with this shit, and that paid off big time.
Just the way that, and we mentioned this earlier, Sam Lake, like the head writer and maybe the creative director, I'm not 100% sure, of the game, is in it as Alex Casey. And especially in like the talk show things where he's mugging to the camera, I was like, oh, you son of a bitch, you know what you're doing. You fucking clever son of a bitch.
Yeah,
this game is just so much goddamn fun.
Yeah, to go back to, like, we were, like you mentioned, being worried if they would have the goofiness of the first one. I lost any concern with that the first time that I saw those two brothers doing their weird-ass commercials on TV.
Of course!
So instead of
the Cascadas, they're awesome!
Instead of the Night Springs episodes from the first one, Brighton Falls has these two Finnish brothers who basically run every business in there, like a character from I Love Lucy, where they have like
they're the raccoon from like Animal Crossing. They just own everything and just like are running
they
shitty
have
like
a
commercials.
Brewery, they have a coffee themed amusement park, they own a trailer park. They also are the heads of their own little fake cult, which we'll find out is not actually a cult and more of a protection thing.
They're not the bad guys.
Other side hustles too, which, I mean, they are millennials, so that kind of makes sense. But yeah, they're completely hilarious. They're fantastically written little shorts that you could just watch their little ads on TV, and it brings the goofiness that we were hoping would be there.
But you don't have to watch them on TV. Like, once they come on in the game, like, you can go back and watch them later.
Yeah,
but I wrote this down
in your writer's room.
Yeah, I wrote this down because this quote was hilarious. They're like, it's for their beer commercial, and he's like, Jaakko, what are you doing? And then Jaakko's like, I'm wearing a turtleneck and drinking wine like an asshole. And I was just like, fucking perfect. And then they do that coffee later. He's like, I'm just drinking a good cup of coffee. And then he tastes it. He's like, this coffee tastes like shit. I was like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Those guys are like the MVPs of this game. I love the Cascella brothers. They're awesome.
It's basically like the same type of vibe from like a Tim and Eric commercial or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the same humor from the first game, but they're like, we're not going to do the same thing we did the last time.
Yeah.
So what's also funny, local commercials are hilarious.
It's narratively a very great way because it gets you to kind of start to develop this connection to those two characters who do play a part with like later on when you have to do like the cult things in there, and you kind of have this thing like, are these guys bad because they seem okay, but at the same time the word cult is there and they're clearly doing things. But yeah, they do little shit like that. We'll get that more in the gameplay section, but yeah, let's talk about the spooky stuff.
I mean, it fits in this section as well for like the horror and everything, because they really endear you to the characters. They honestly do. Like, you kind of feel, I don't know about you, you kind of feel bad for Nightingale a little bit. That's well, yeah. I did want to notice that, like, he was like, on our last episode, you're like, here lies Agent Nightingale mourned and investigated by nothing. You were wrong. They do investigate it in this one. But he's
they investigate it 13 years later. They investigate it 13 years later after his bloated corpse lands on the fucking beach. That's not really an investigation of love right there.
Yeah, and like fucking Casey just says, oh yeah, that guy went missing.
Casey's like, oh yeah, he told me about that and he went off the deep end. And like Casey, like, is that the closest thing he had to a friend? Because that's not like...
Yeah.
What? Like,
I mean, even Casey said he was an asshole. So
yeah,
it's just
Casey didn't give a shit. So, yeah, again, I stand by my comments. Mourned by no one. Also, I love how, like, they make it a point to talk about how there's this whole mystery about Alan Wake. There's these people who keep doing that. They have multiple characters in the background who are, like, podcasters and stuff who come in there and you hear their background conversations like, yeah, Alan Wake disappeared and that. Not one person mentions Nightingale at all. No one cares about him. Like,
no one cares about him. And like to reiterate, anything Alan writes comes to be reality. And when we see Agent Nightingale, he is balder and fatter
and small.
Even though this was the same year, and yes, he has a very tiny penis. So like, I think Alan might still be writing reality.
It's amazing that Alan spent 13 years in a dark dimension being chased by boogans 24/7, yet he still manages to have the biggest hate boner for this asshole he met 13 years ago.
He is so petty.
Yeah, that is the
so
level
petty.
of how much of a dick Nightingale was.
In Nightingale's defense, we don't know if that was written by Alan because Nightingale was suspicious of him, as he would be a suspect in his wife's disappearance.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, so just the fact that out of the gate, you're Agent Nightingale and you're in this humiliating situation, I'm like, oh, okay, we're fine.
Yeah.
We're okay. This is all going to be fine.
They tell you nothing. You have no information.
No.
And, like, at first, I didn't even... I'm like, oh, am I Nightingale? Because you're just a big bloated... And I'm like, oh, I think I'm Nightingale. And you start walking and wandering as...
That's not apparent at first. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of the things that they do well to up the spookiness level.
They bring another character back from the first game, the lady with all the lights.
Mm-hmm.
The lamp and the lights and the dam, she's actually a boss that you have to fight because she's been possessed. She's been taken over. And you have to fight her in the dark place. And it's like, this game has a lot of evil within in its bones. Like the level of creepiness and like the boss fights and everything. So they actually amped it up for this game and made it more creepy than the first one was. They put like different variations of enemies in there, like the ones that have their upper torsos as their upper and lower parts of their bodies.
Yeah.
Do you see those guys? Like you start seeing them in the old folks' home.
They walk on their hands and they also have their hands to grab you. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And kind of throwing people at you that were allies, like her, Cynthia Weaver, in the first game. Having her become taken and become a bad guy and kind of a harrowing boss fight because she's chasing you underwater. And hers was probably the scariest fight because like you're in this like cistern and in the overlap, which is part of the dark place, but like you're in the and if you have to run from dry spot to dry spot. If you're in the water too long, she's gonna grab you and do damage.
Yeah.
And she'll like spring it on you, and like you can hear like the rush of water behind you as you're running. So that's a pretty scary fight. And I was like, ooh, this has got some evil within in it. They're actually
got
upping
some evil dead in it too. She's like straight up deadite popping out of the water and like talking shit too. 'Cause, yeah,
it's they do a lot with like the disorientation of being in the overlap or in the dark place, and bringing characters that you've already met and interacted with, like the two deputies. It's like, yeah, they're kind of dipshits, but they're not bad people. And then you're like having to fight them later. Like a lot of the times I was thinking in this game, I was like, fuck, she is just murdering the shit out of people that have like been taken over by this thing. And it's not like because they're bad, it's just because they're they were mentally susceptible to it. And it's just like, fuck, that's fucked up.
It's also even worse for Cynthia because you get to see, if you read the manuscripts and stuff, she talks about how she had been so vigilant and everything, and this happens to her because she fucked up and forgot to change a light bulb in her bathroom.
Yeah, it's really the darkness just being real. Fuck you. Yeah, and doing it because they know it's gonna hurt. So like, yeah, it's that.
One thing we haven't mentioned so far, but like the first game is really more of a survival action, like horror action game where it's really a lot quicker. This is more survival horror. They limit your gear and all of that stuff, and that kind of ups like the spookiness when you're actually having to play through this compared to the first one. Like there's a lot of like pacing and stuff that's way more horror centric compared to the first game, and that kind of really worked, especially with like their design. Like they really made an effort to make this a scarier game, and it makes sense because throughout the game Alan keeps saying this is a horror story. He's changed it so, and he's not used to writing horror because he writes a fictional hard-boiled PI, so he's uncomfortable in that too.
Writes shitty James Patterson novels,
which again is always so hilarious to me when you find out like he only takes artists and stuff, and it's like he stole the dude who wrote Jack Reacher? Like
yeah, it's just like
you could get
and Alan Wake's whole thing, he's like, I don't know how he's doing this. He's writing too good.
Yeah, you could get like a Nobel Prize like poet or like a fucking Pulitzer Prize author. Like, no, just I'm gonna steal the Jack Reacher and whatever.
Yeah, so Stephen King is still alive. You can go grab him. Oh no. Okay, this dime store or supermarket.
How funny if you did take Jackie Child, and then Jackie Child just wrote Jack Reacher's giant ass, and he just beat the shit out of the darkness by being like 8 feet tall. Just
why hasn't Alan done that?
Yeah.
Why did he just say like Alex Casey was Superman? He's impervious to everything, and he punches his main ability is destroying the dark place. It's like,
Alex Casey really got into creatine and put on 50 pounds between novels. Also, he got a Green Lantern ring. That's a thing that I'm doing because I don't have to worry about copyright in the dark place.
Then he put on his swinging hog and he just beat the dark place to death with it. Yeah, it's just, why didn't you just do that, man? Come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this game was scarier than the first one, which I appreciated. It's not like horrifying, like on a scale of 1 to 10 it's maybe like a 4 as far as scares, but
it's more
than the first one was. It's like, oh, that was genuinely creepy. It's one of those things.
It's more like kind of the last game that we talked about, BioShock 2, where it's like a lot of it is also making your own horror in terms of like pacing and stuff like that. Like they do a lot of things to instigate horror with you, but also like investigating and reading the manuscripts and getting the backstories and all of that stuff really ups the atmospheric horror that kind of drives this all home.
Yeah, it's something that more games are doing now, and I like doing like Bloodborne and Dark Souls and Elden Ring do it a lot, where it's just like the lore is there, but you don't have to engage with it to enjoy the game. But if you like want a more immersive experience, if you go in there, it's very rewarding. And this is one of those things. It's like, yeah, we have, there was one where you have to go to the coffee amusement park, which was just hilarious in and of itself to me. But
it's such a shitty looking amusement park.
It's so shitty.
At least like 3 kids have died in that place.
We're talking like county carnival level amusement park.
Saga Anderson isn't the only one who's lost a child in this adventure, because half of Brighton Falls kid population has probably died on one of those Java rides.
God, the Cascella brothers are probably so happy that the dark place came to Bright Falls, because then they could just blame all the children deaths.
Oh, yeah. No, the darkness got it. Not because we forgot to strap on the fucking bolts to the Ferris wheel. That's why it fell over and crushed your child. No refunds.
Here's another funny commercial. Pay attention to that. And also, everybody in Washington is Finnish, apparently. So that's also funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's that shitty fucking thing there. But like, they actually have a manuscript page where you can read about what happens before Saga gets to that amusement park and how everybody there gets taken, and it's pretty creepy.
Yeah.
But like, again, you don't need to read it because you're like, no, I got it. They couldn't get the people at the amusement park on the phone, and then you get over there and everyone's taken. Okay. But like, they're like, but if you want a little bit of added creepiness, here's this for you, but you don't have to engage with it. It's a trend I like in video games that maybe not a lot of people do, where it's just like, well, I don't know what the story or the lore is here. And it's like, well, it's like in descriptions of items or like in different logs that you can find. It's there, but it's just like, we understand that not everybody is here for that, but it's still there if you want it.
It's also kind of a good design feature too, because like we mentioned, Saga's an FBI agent, and her whole thing is investigating what's going on because she has no fucking clue. And part of the investigation, you press a button on your thing and it takes you to a mind place or mind palace, kind of a la Sherlock or Hannibal or whatever show has done that in the past 10 years, because everybody does a mind place thing.
Everybody does. If you're a brilliant detective, you have a mind palace and it looks cool and everyone's like, oh, she's so smart. It's just like, no, she's psychic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they do reveal that. Like, oh, psychic. Yeah, no. Her, you find out that she's related to the Old Gods of Asgard band, and they're like, oh, yeah, no, you're just psychic. That's not, she's like, huh? I'm like, yeah, you're reading people. Oh, okay, that makes so much more sense. Yeah.
Well, I actually like that because it shows that, like, the old gods of Asgard, Odin and Thor, were like actually keeping the dark place at bay for a long time, but they've gotten senile and old. So now the dark place is getting stronger, and that coincides with when Alan gets there. Yeah. So it's just like, I was like, oh, I actually like that. That's like kind of a good story point. Like, and they've always kind of been aware.
And you find out that the cult isn't actually a cult. Because, like, everything, when you're investigating, you're like, this is the most cliche cult bullshit. And then you find out, yeah, because they're not really a cult. They're just disguising themselves like that so that they can get rid of the people possessed by the dark. And even he says, it's like, yeah, what better way to say you're a weird cult than by saying that you're a cult? No cult calls themselves that. It's like,
yeah, Saga even says that. She's like, what kind of a cult calls themselves a cult?
Exactly. Why wouldn't it's the stupidest thing. Yeah. He says, like, the cult thing did half of our work for us because it kept people out of the woods. But,
God, I love this game.
One of my favorite parts is going to the trailer park. Because I don't know if you've ever spent time in a trailer park, but then, like, when the boogans come out and they're there, I'm like, oh, that's just like seeing an alcoholic at a trailer park. This is just regular trailer park life. It's not even dark place. Like,
that would be funny if they weren't taken. They were just, like, on meth.
Yeah, no, this is just Reggie. He's got
like hardcore, like hardcore MAGAs pissed off that there's a black woman in their trailer park. But yeah, it's, I love that. I love this game. But yeah, the scary stuff, like when you have to go through the well in the coffee amusement park. Gosh, they do. It's a little Stranger Things in a way. So like they do a lot of different stuff that they didn't do in the first one. Yeah. Like as far as the scares, they do totally the opposite that they did in the first one. Instead of just like, yeah, these are normal people, they're just shaded black. They like make different variants of like the enemies, and also they change. Like, you go actually into the dark place, into another dimension. So they're like, yeah, we're just going to put you in a loop. You're going to be totally disoriented. You're not going to know where you are, what's going on. And we're going to throw creepy boogans at you.
Yeah, the repetition aspect they get a lot of horror out of that because, as we mentioned, like there's a lot of time loops in this, and later on you find out that it's a spiral, not a loop. But yeah, with the repetition, they're able to, like, a lot of times you usually use that for comedy purposes because just repetition just makes things funnier. Here they use it for horror aspects, and it pops a lot throughout this in ways where it's like I know I should be scared. This is my third time. Something's going to happen, and it still gets you. Like, even though you know it's coming.
Yeah, no, they're so good at, like, I know this was something that happened on the first episode that we did on the first Alan Wake, where it's just like, are they doing this on purpose? I mean, it's clear they are. Mm-hmm. But they're so good at it. They're so good at weaving like the weird and funny in with the scary at the same time. Like, it's just not. They realize what their shtick is, but they're not like. They lean into it, but they're still like, well, we'll do it, but we have to be able to, like, do something different with it. But yet it's still recognizably the same cheesiness that was in Alan Wake.
It's really hard because doing a meta story like this, where you're a writer writing about writing and you're trying to convey it, where it's like I have to write this in a good way, otherwise everything bad is going to happen, and all of that stuff. It's so easy to like have it where things would start to get cliche, or other writers would be able to nitpick, like, because, like, I write a lot. Most of my friends are writers, like, your brother's a writer, Dave's a writer, all
yeah.
Like, so, like, I'm really familiar with stories, and I'm really familiar with storytelling things. And even there, like, there was things where I'm like, okay, clearly this is going to happen. And it did, and I was right. But then there was still stuff that surprised me, where I was like, oh, okay, so you did do it like that. And it's such a hard needle to thread, and somehow they managed to do that, which, hats off, man. Like,
yeah, they know which end of the swimming pool they're swimming in. I mean, it's like, they're very aware that you know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But they're so good at throwing other stuff out at you. It's just like, yes, this is what you were expecting, but not in the way you were expecting it. And it's just like, it's so well done in the way that it's just like, it's not horror in the sense that, and you mentioned it earlier, it's not horror in the sense like The Exorcist is horror.
Yeah.
It's the horror in the sense that Evil Dead 2 is horror.
Yeah.
And they're just like, look, we are going to give you some scares, but this is going to be like just like fun, tongue-in-cheek type shit. But it's not lowbrow at all. It's not like, oh yeah, I see what you're doing, but I didn't expect you to go for it at that angle, if that makes any sense. It's just like, oh yeah, you're doing exactly what I thought you were going to do, but not in the way I thought you were going to do it. It's so much fun there, and you can tell they're having so much fucking fun making this. And I would play like I would play 100 Alan Wake games if they keep doing this. Like, honestly, it's also so much fun.
Like, every time that they kind of get a little too fun or something, they immediately cut you at the legs, and they have something where it's just very uncomfortable. Like the levels where Alan in the darkness has to go to his apartment and he has to watch. So in the years that Alan has disappeared, his wife Alice has not been taking things well, and she starts to do like art displays involving the darkness and that, and she does these videos. This is part of the like horror stuff, is they intersplice like cutscenes with like, you know, CG and generated characters and stuff with actual actors too. And all of the Alice stuff is an actual actress just like really nailing the discomfort of watching your wife going through a painful experience and just you being powerless to stop anything. There's no monsters in those levels. It's just you with a flashlight alone in the darkness watching your sad wife give sad testimonials about how shitty her life is. And this is despite you sacrificing yourself to make sure she had a better life.
But the darkness is menacing her with your face. So now, like, her total opinion, like, when she sees you is just, like, your face. Anything is just horror and pain. And the fact that Alan has, like, you know, it's like, no, I did this to save her. Yeah. And the fact that the darkness is just like, well, I'm going to use your face to, like, absolutely terrify her now. And it's just... It's heartbreaking, but it's also creepy at the same time. Like when you find out why she's setting up all these cameras. Oh, she's trying to trap me as a ghost. And it's just like, oh, fuck. And like you said, she totally nails it in those. Like the acting in this is really, you know, it's like some of the line deliveries are perfect, are like intentionally wooden. But like for the most part, it's like, yeah, this is pretty fucking, this is like on par with like the best X-Files episodes. Yeah. And like Twin Peaks, like David Lynchian.
It's clear those are their inspirations there.
Oh God, then, yes.
We were talking about like time loops and repetition, but in those levels and like in other stuff, the repetition also adds to the sad stuff. Later on in the game, because you go to that apartment like 3 times, you have 3 different levels and stuff. And the last time you go, the apartment is completely empty. There's no furniture. It's clear that nobody's there. And then when you're watching it, you get the reveal that her last tape is that she's killing herself to make herself into art because she can't go on anymore. And you're just... So you've been fighting 13 years to get out of the darkness, and she's already dead, and it's just the most deflatingly sad thing.
Is it clear that she's dead, or is it just inferred? Because I'm not 100% sure on that.
No, you see her in the video saying, "This is my last thing, and it's me becoming art," and she walks off of a cliff. But, spoiler, after the game ends and the end credits go, you get another video, and Alice is back there, and she reveals that she's been fucking with you, Alan. She's been fucking with you the whole time because she remembers that everything about being in the dark place, and she realizes the only way to get you out is to have you not do loops, but to spiral into destruction and then rebuild yourself. So she's trying to save you by making you break your heart, which again, this is what I mean by, like, they clearly, the whole time you're like, oh, this is going to be one of those sad, my wife died things, and it's going to be cliche. But instead, they kind of bring it back and give her a lot of her own agency back because she didn't have that in the first game. And also, like, in the first couple of games, it's a little hard. Like, Alan's kind of a dick, and you're like, why is she with him? Because she's just kind of a nice person and stuff. But when you see the end stuff, you're like, oh, she's just kind of as fucked up as he is, but they both love each other, and they're both fucked up and trying to save each other. That makes a lot of sense that you two would be together. Great job, Alice.
Let's not say kind of about Alan Wake being a dick in the first game.
Oh, yeah. No, he's a dick. Yeah.
He is a dick.
But I do want to talk a little about Saga.
Yeah, she's great. I like her.
Would have been incredible to fuck this up really bad by giving you a character that's not your titular character. They nailed it. She's just so compelling to play with, and just great performance by the voice actress. And they really flesh her out where it's just, she's equal levels of a protagonist, and you care just as much about her getting her ending that she deserves with saving her daughter Logan versus Alan getting out of there. So,
and I mean, it's important that you like, and I think The Last of Us Part 2 did it. It's like important for like a story sometimes, especially if it's a sequel, to like, if you're approaching it with the same protagonist every single time, you're only seeing it through their viewpoint. It's important to do it from a different perspective. I think that's why God of War Ragnarok did, or not Ragnarok, but just the God of War remake and the thing. They're like, well, we need to approach this from a different angle, and it did incredibly well. But showing the same story but from a different perspective, and from coming from someone that's not really self-absorbed, I think, because Alan is still incredibly self-absorbed in this game.
He is, but it's kind of like the only way he can survive, because he's writing the narrative. Like, it's kind of a necessity for him. Whereas the Saga, she's just like, I don't want to say a bystander, but she's a bystander who refuses to be a bystander. And
a bystander. She was roped into it by Alan. You find out, like, he takes her and writes her into his story as the hero. But as a result, she's gotten all this unwanted attention from the Dark Place, including her daughter's dead now, drowning.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you son of a bitch, you wrote me into it like this. No, I had to do it. And she's just like, no, fuck you. You're still an asshole, and I'm going to find my own way out of this. So she's great. I love Saga. And honestly, like, this is a sign of a good game. It's just like, if they have this aspect to it, like when you have two different protagonists and you're having to switch between them. Devil May Cry 4 does this too, but like, you're like, they introduce you to the new character first, and then when you go to the character that you're more used to, in this case Alan Wake, it's just like, I don't know, I was having fun playing Saga. And then you go and you play Alan Wake for a little bit, and it's like, well, we have to go back to Saga now. You're like, I'm having fun playing Alan Wake. And it just keeps going back and forth between that. That is a great problem to have in a game. And this game has it, where it's just like, I'm like having a blast no matter who I'm playing.
And they do a great job of making her horror equally as scary, because like we mentioned her mind palace. One of the first things that you do in the mind palace is that you are able to examine the stuff in there. Like she just has assorted knickknacks and stuff from her real life in there, and then near the end of it, she gets absorbed into the Dark Place, and they try to use the Mind Palace against her. So, like, you had these investigative clues and stuff, and when you're investigating in there, it keeps fucking up your clues, where it's like, your daughter's dead, you were a shitty mom, your daughter's dead, you were a shitty mom, and a bad agent, and all of this stuff, and it keeps throwing it, and you just have to investigate the other clues that you had set up way earlier in the game to kind of break out of that, and she's like, no, my kid loves me, fuck you, I'm not listening to your bullshit. And like, that's what I mean with like the repetition, like building on horror, because for a little while, you're like, how the fuck do I get out of here? I don't know how to get out of here with Saga, but then it starts to become clear, and it's just really well thought ways to put horror into a game that don't involve just monsters jumping at you. There's a lot of psychological shit in there.
Because it's the whole thing about the Dark Place is getting you off guard and putting you in a situation where it's like you're questioning reality. Mm-hmm. And Saga's a good character because she's like, first of all, she acknowledges that something stupid is happening. She's like, all right, well, there's something that's dumb going on here. It's supernatural. And yes, I'm a rational person, but there's definitely something fucking happening here, and it's stupid. And then the second thing is like, and I'm not going to buy it.
Nope.
I'm not buying into this. I'm just going to say like, well, no, this is not reality. People keep telling you, no, this is reality. She's like, fuck you, no, it's not. And I'm going to work through it. And she's kind of like a perfect character to put in this. So yeah, I mean, hats off to that. But yeah, speaking of gameplay, do you have anything else that you want to talk to as far as the spookiness or booiness?
Not really, because a lot of it's going to be involved in gameplay stuff, so I kind of
I mean, this game is dope, but it kind of all falls under the same umbrella. But we do need to give our elderly friend a break. And
let's
I'm not as good at talking.
Old folks home with Thor and Odin.
Do you not already think he talked to me about it earlier? Oh yes, I fuck with those two immensely, Thor and Odin. Their moonshine.
Yes,
and their craziness.
Delicious.
Moonshine and bats. They have a lot of bats in their barn.
You think when what's her name was popping out of the pond, she was like, keep it down, some of us are trying to sleep.
Yeah. You shut up. trying to watch my old Hamer films. But yes, we're going to say bid adieu to him. Let him go to the dark place where he is comfortable in.
One more horror thing. Sorry.
Okay.
One more horror thing that's kind of appropriate for this show. When you're in the old folks' home, one of the horrific things you discover is that one of the residents is just an old man who has his podcast, and he's just aimlessly podcasting, and he doesn't know what's going on with the world, which I feel like is like, I was like, this feels a little close to home here.
Do you know who he is? Oh, God. You just made me feel that, and it hit me hard.
Yeah.
But you know who he was, right? He was the radio guy from the first game.
Yeah, he's the radio dude, and he's just aged into this, so it's like...
Nightingale shoots at. Yeah. Fucking Nightingale's the reason he's in that goddamn old folks' home. He had so much trauma from being shot at by a random drunk FBI agent that only knows, like, what People Magazine knows about authors. So.
But I think podcasting from an old folks' home is the dark place for all of us eventually.
All of us? Yeah, all of us?
We're good.
Yeah, pretty much. All of us?
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm having fun. Fuck you. Leave me alone. But yeah, now let's go traipsing on into the back, into the Koskela brothers.
Boneyard of people who died in their fucking amusement park.
They'll sell you whatever bones you want. Like, you want bones from children? Yes, come. We got bones from children here.
Yeah.
But let's wander in the back, take our great cups of coffee back into the boneyard.
Perhaps now we should go traipsing through the boneyard.
And this is where we talk about the gameplay, the actual bones of the game. And if you guys are already listening, this game fucking rules. There's a very, very few amounts of times we'll come into this game and this is like, yeah, this is just a fucking great game. I don't know what else to say about it, but it really kind of is. Everything that they recognized what worked and didn't work from the first one. They just made it better. I don't know really how else to say it. It's just
they made it better, but they also got ambitious with it. Like we mentioned the musical number.
Holy shit, we have to talk about that because the highlight of the first game was fighting the darkness with rock and roll.
Yeah, Barry's doing DJs and he's fucking launching shit and you're launching fireworks. It's an incredibly fun moment.
It's the best part of the game. But this is how do we do the same thing, only different, and make it better? A rock opera?
We'll have Alan star in a nightmare of a musical video that he can't escape from. And the music video actually fucking rips. That song is really catchy.
That song is dope. When I was playing that, it was the exact same feeling I got in the first game, where you're hearing this music and you're doing this fun combat. And then you look up and then there's this preposterous music video and dance number with these live actors. It's just so much goddamn fun. Oh man.
So a couple of things of note here. Apparently Sam Lake, they tried to tell him, no, this is weird and people won't get rid of it. He's like, nah, fuck you. He just kept it in there.
And he gave him the same look that he does constantly in this game.
Yeah, no.
Where it's mugging to the camera. He's like, I'm going to do this. And they're like, no, we can't do this. Oh, I'm going to do it.
The great thing is, I guess they did a live performance of this at the Video Game Awards, and Sam Lake was dancing on stage as him. He has... Everyone else is acting in character and stuff, and he just has the biggest fucking smile on his face because he's like, hell yeah, this rules, told you, kiss my ass. It's such a great little, yeah.
God, and he's got you guys have to play this game. If you haven't, please play this game.
It's worth it for just this level alone, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, just to look at the faces, this guy... Sam Lake looks like he was born to be in an Alan Wake game. Like, he just looks like the personification of this game. It's just like he's got this like very angular, almost like a dad face, like it's like, it's hard to explain. He's got this very Nordic angular face, but he knows it's funny when he makes funny face. I don't know how to explain it. He knows what he looks like is what I'm trying to say.
He has the face of a guy who would be in a Bergman movie.
Yes, he leans so much into it, but he leans into it in a way that he like knows is funny, like can be funny. I don't really know how to. You're a humor guy, so you could probably explain it better. But when you know what the shtick is and you lean into it, but you lean into it in like a.
So
I don't know.
Basically, what it is that he knows deadpan. He has a perfect like weird European deadpan type of like delivery and knowledge of what he's in, and you have this like, are you fucking with me? But you know he's in on the joke, and it always works for that.
It's like you weird European deadpan, but he knows how Americans view weird European deadpan, and he plays it perfectly.
There's levels to that shit. So yeah. One thing that's ridiculous though, like, because as we mentioned, there's a music video and it's like live action with like the actor playing Alan Wake and stuff, but Alan Wake is actually two people. So the actor who plays Alan Wake is Finnish. He speaks English, and you actually see him because he plays another character who looks like Alan Wake, who speaks with his regular Finnish type accent. But the voice of Alan Wake is actually Will Scarlett O'Hara from Robin Hood Men in Tights. So,
is he?
Yeah, it's him.
Fuck. I knew he was British, but like everybody is like, no, I don't think there are any American voice actors in this game. Even like Saga Anderson, because like the way she says her name, Saga Anderson, you can tell 100% she's British.
Yeah.
Saga Anderson. Like, it's just like, oh, you're not American at all, but I don't care because I'm already 100% in on this game.
So with like that, like, this is an entire musical number where the actor playing Alan Wake has to do all of this stuff while the guy who does the voice of Alan Wake has to sing everything, and they have to coordinate it with like a lip sync. And obviously the dude can sing because he was in a musical about Robin Hood. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it comes out fine, but like the coordination between the two and kind of making that work, and then having, again, Martian Manhunter / what the fuck was the Homeland guy, like also dancing in the background and singing. It's just a bunch of ridiculous.
Doing a Barack Obama impression.
Yeah.
But like the guy that's doing the physical work for Alan Wake is great because the look on his face during
so animated
anything that he's in, he's just like, what the fuck is happening? It's so fucking funny. Oh man, and that scene, that just one sequence alone is a reason to buy this game, because they mix the live action and the video game so well and seamlessly that a lot of video games need to start doing this. I think there's like a stigma on them because they're like, well, we don't want to be like a 90s FMV style game. And I'm like, just look at the way that Remedy is doing it with Alan Wake. It's so good and perfect for this game because it's all about blurring realities and everything. It's just the way they do it is just so fun and clever, and the way they involve the player in that is so satisfying. And the differences they put between Alan and Saga's gameplay, with like Alan can like write different realities into being, or like can steal the light and then reveal, or steal the light or put the light somewhere and reveal like different options going forward. And the way that Saga can put together cases and clues in order to like open new areas, it's just really cool. They make it. It's unique to the characters. When you're switching between the characters, they make the gameplay similar but different enough to make them both compelling, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, like Sagas is all very much a detective thing. You're investigating, and by your investigations, you reach logical conclusions, and you do this. With Alan, you just get pieces of something, and you're like, oh, this is a character point. Let me write this as the character to change this scene. Or this is a plot point. Let me write this as the plot to change this scene. And it works. It's unique to both of them in a way that's just really well thought out in terms of making it not just, oh, I'm switching back and forth between characters like, Jill and Chris in Resident Evil or something.
Right,
you're playing two completely different styles of play with both of these characters.
It's two sides of Agent Cooper from Twin Peaks. Like, you have the detective side with Saga, and then you just have the banana nonsense craziness with Alan on his end, because this is everything with him and Sean Ashmore, who is in this game, by the way, in in the dark place. That poor sheriff, man, he's having the worst fucking time. But like, it's just all crazy, absolute crazy nonsense with Alan, and like with Saga, it's just like it's still crazy, but it's just detective work with her, and like with him, it's just manipulating chaos.
And it's both
ordering
fun.
Chaos, and it's so good. Yeah, they're both so much fun. It's just like, well, it's that thing. It's just like, well, I was having a lot of fun with this character, and they're like, yeah, and now you're gonna have a lot of fun with this character, and you do, which is just they know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's weird because like there's a couple of things I didn't like about the gameplay, but they're all minor.
Yeah, me too.
They're kind of nitpicks, but they feel even like weird to even talk about. For me, like, so what did you not like with the?
It's too hard at some points.
Okay,
like some of the bosses I think are like Cynthia Weaver's boss fight, where it's like my favorite one in the game. It's also kind of frustrating because you don't know, like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? The light doesn't really stun her so much, and it doesn't let you know when you're able to damage her. Mm-hmm. And there's like, you can't really dodge her like wave attack. Like,
and sometimes it's a little too dark and you can't see exactly like, oh wait, there's the hole in the wall I'm supposed to crawl through. Like,
yes, and like, because like I know I spent the and you're right, we do need to talk about the negatives, because there are some negatives in this game. I don't want to just be blowing this game the entire time, but like the first time that Nightingale's body goes crazy and kills those two deputies, and like I'm like trying to leave the area, but like, how the fuck am I supposed to get out of here? And it's like, no, you have to talk to Casey and then make these connections in your head in order to progress on the game, but they don't tell you that. So like, this game doesn't tell you a lot of what you're supposed to do, or like how to get the upgrades for the guns and weapons, which is the Alex Casey lunchboxes that you have to find, which are fun, but they don't tell you that you need to do that in order to upgrade your weapons or anything. So they don't tell you a lot, and that's, I think, the biggest drawback on this game. It's just like, well, or sometimes like you're saying, like in the basement looking for the fuse in the old folks' home. Like, I was running around the first time I played. I was running around for a while trying to figure out, well, how the fuck am I supposed to? And then it's like this one corner. Oh, there's a vent with a grate missing, and I have to duck into that to get into the next area. But I just didn't see it because it's so goddamn dark.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's like part of the theme and light and dark. I'm like, yeah, I know, but you're still going to have to tell me like that I'm supposed to go this way, or else I'm just going to be running around and getting frustrated. So
sometimes there's some intuitive stuff like that with some of the puzzles. Like, there's one puzzle where you have to find, I forget what you're looking for. It's either one of the lunch boxes or one of the nursery rhyme things. And you're trying to find a key to open one of the stashes for the cultists. And when you see it, the clue is written like kind of like a fairy tale. You're like, oh, well, the castles are clearly the house. And then one of the markers is a dead animal corpse. And you're like, oh, well, you see dead deer and stuff all the time here. And I looked around forever, and eventually
trying to find the charm I know exactly which one you're talking about. They tell you,
no, in this case, it's not a dead animal corpse, even though you've seen those a bunch of times. This time, that refers to a broken down car. And there's no logical thing that makes you make that connection.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a little too clever for your own good, and that's more frustrating than rewarding. And you don't need to do that.
Yeah, they do lean into the cleverness a little bit too much on some things where you're like,
oh yeah, here's a child's math problem. I don't man. I don't want to be pulling out my calculator for this shit. Get the fuck out of here.
Well, where the hell is this charm that I'm supposed to get? And they're just like, I don't know, look it up online. And like, I did find myself doing that sometimes with their puzzles. It's like, what the fuck do they want me to do? And it's not because the puzzles are hard, but they don't tell you that it's a puzzle, and they don't tell you the rules of the puzzle, which is something like, it's just like, that gets, and we talk about this in like games like The Seventh Guest and stuff like that, where they just like throw a bucket of marbles at you and tell you to solve it. And you're like, what am I solving? What are you talking about? Yeah. And this game definitely suffers from that in some parts, where they're like not really telling you what you're supposed to do or where you're supposed to go. And like they give you dolls and like they draw pictures and chalk on the ground. And they're like, here's a nursery rhyme, solve it. I'm like, what am I solving?
It's annoying with some of those, because some of the nursery rhymes where it's like a couple of the dolls are too similar in terms of like, they say like, oh, a beast. And you're like, is this a wolf or a bear?
Yeah, are you talking about a moose or a deer? Because you gave me a moose and a deer at the same nursery rhyme. And it's like a handsome man with a crown.
Sometimes you don't even have the deer, and you don't even know you're missing the deer. You're like, oh, I put this moose on 5 fucking times. Oh, I didn't know there was another one that also fits this, and you gave me no hint to that. So there's some frustrating things like that. There's also there's some like basic design flaws with certain things. Like once you find a map, like you have to find a map and it tells you the whole location of things.
Yeah,
once you have that, just give me a fucking overhead display. I don't want to have to be pausing every time and going to the map and then looking at the map to like find out the exact thing. Like just give me an overhead thing of
Well, she wouldn't know unless she had a map. I'm like, she has a cell phone. She has GPS. We can figure this out. You know, yeah, you're absolutely right on that.
Another one too that was frustrating is I understand not making you sprint full speed or like limiting that when you're doing like battle scenes and stuff, because that increases the tension and makes it more difficult. They needed to have faster sprinting.
It also helps you to a extent.
Yeah, they needed to have faster sprinting for when you weren't in combat, because sometimes, especially with Saga, who for some reason just isn't that fast, even with the sprint, it takes you forever to navigate a long ass map, and that comes into play later on when you get like the bolt cutters and you have to go to a far part of a map you didn't go before because you didn't have them, and it takes for fucking ever to get there.
It's called fast travel. And most, if not all games nowadays have it. I don't need to run the extent of this map to get back to where I am. And it's just like, they might have I haven't, like, I played it a year ago, and then I played through most of it again for this. But like, there's just no fast travel. Like,
there is no fast travel. I played like for the first time this week, and I finished yesterday.
Fast travel. It's just like, but you have all these points. It's just like, are you going to make me run all the way back through it? Well, yeah, you might find some enemies to fight on the way. And I'm like, am I going to get experience from them? No, it's just going to sap your bullets in time. I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. That's dumb.
And like I said, even if they just made it so that when you're not engaged in combat, just make the sprint like a little bit quicker. That would have been fine.
What they did do is you don't get winded in this one.
That's true. Yeah, Alan doesn't have the lungs of a smoker like in the first one where he was just hacking up every 5 seconds.
He does not have the lungs of a supermarket paperback writer in this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, what the guys, come on.
There's also some frustrating things with Alan's stuff. In order to like find certain aspects of things, there's these things called an echo, and you have to like align these points with your flashlight. And sometimes because of the darkness, it's just such a pain in the ass to find the specific angle to hit it at, and it's so fucking frustrating, and it doesn't need to be that difficult for that type of thing.
You have to line up like a black orb and a light circle.
Yeah, make it like an eclipse.
If we haven't already, you have to line them up and make them like an eclipse. And if we had, like we already said, this game is really fucking dark. Mm-hmm. So like I'm like wandering around and it's just like, and then all of a sudden Alan's like, oh look, it is a thing here, which is the game saying, look over here, jackass. And I'm like, well, the game is dark and I didn't see that black orb, and I'm sorry.
And make it easier for me to fucking see. Thing. Sometimes you have to like go up to a rooftop and do it from a downward angle, and even that's like kind of hard to find. Like that's annoying.
It's very similar to like Hellblade, where you have to like match the symbols, and this one doesn't do it as well. It's very dark, and it doesn't. Again, this game does not tell you anything.
The other thing that I found the most annoying, this was my biggest one that I hated.
Let's take a big old dump on Alan Wake 2 now.
I'm sorry, but yeah, there's
You've been sucking your dick for a while, but now it's time for the good old Cleveland Steamer.
We gotta neg you, bro.
Yeah, we gotta neg you now, so you don't feel like you're worth what you are.
Yeah, we have to get you to spiral downward because it's the only.
You're awesome, but don't leave me, so you suck.
There's these things where you find like it's a circle of yellow words, and when you shine your flashlight on it, it kind of gives you like a power up for whatever thing.
That's Alan's Alex Casey lunchboxes. Just have another Alex Casey lunchbox, guys. Yeah. We don't need to do something completely different. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You have to put your light on it in a very specific way for it to light up. And the way that you feel it is like a vibration through your vibrational controller. But it's so slight, it's not giving you any info. Like you're like, am I there? Oh, wait, I moved a centimeter the wrong way. Now it's broken. I have to find that spot again. It's really obnoxious.
It's a Riddler trophy from Arkham City where you have to like find his like little weird riddle circles, but in this game it's just like, oh, look at this, what the fuck is that? I don't know, see what it does if you put your light on it. It's like they don't even tell you that you need that in order to upgrade. Like I didn't even know that I could upgrade my weapons until they told me.
The thing is that even if you know, like lining your light up, we talked about how annoying it was with the echo. It's 5 times worse for the word thing. Like you can barely feel the vibration in your controller to tell you that you're hitting it correctly sometimes. And it, like there was one I just was aiming at for like a good 10-15 seconds. I'm like, come on, I don't move. Like, yeah.
It's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And they're just like, well, you're supposed to write. There's like a scene in the subway with Alan where you have to like figure out how to get out of the subway. Mm-hmm. And they have like 3 different areas that you can. This isn't going to make any sense unless you played the game, but like 3 different scenarios that you have to quote unquote write in order to get there. Mm-hmm. But in order to do that, you have to run over to this one area, write a specific thing, and then run back to this area to see if it's open. And oh shit, it's not open. I have to run back to the place where I have to rewrite it. It's just, and keep in mind, guys, this game is great.
Yeah,
but this part sucks. Like this is an aspect that's not as good. But it's
like I said,
it just isn't. And they run into this problem. You were asking me before the show.
Yeah,
we started, but on Control. Control suffers from this a lot. Oh. Whereas Alan Wake, you're already familiar with Alan Wake and the kind of game that they're doing. Control is just, we're dropping you in a totally new thing, and we're still not going to tell you what to do. I think Remedy leans into that a little bit too much. And it's like, no, play your way. I was like, okay, I will play my way. You still need to tell me how to play, though. And this game, Control, the first Alan Wake, it doesn't really tell you a whole lot about how you're supposed to go about doing it, which is a problem.
Yeah.
And tell me what I need to do. Don't just leave us like, I don't know. What should you do? No, don't fuck with me. I know this is a meme game, but like, don't fuck with me. Just tell me actually what I'm supposed to do.
The one thing so like I said, most of that's like minor nitpicky thing, and this is the most nitpicky thing. I fucking hate the crossbow. It's so worthless. The reload time is so insanely too long.
It's a garbage weapon, and it does honestly. I can do more with DPS from the handgun than I can do with one shot from the crossbow.
Yeah, I just threw that shit in storage as soon as I found the shotgun, or even the pump shotgun, or the rifle is great too. It's a worthless weapon. I don't need that shit. And
the only thing it's good for is that you can just pick up the arrows. That's really the only thing. It's like you can pick the arrows back up sometimes and reload them, but really it's not.
So, like I said, I don't want to turn this into a shitting on Alan Wake, but those are just because those are fresh in my mind and I just played the game. But
the theater curtains are open. We're already dumping on this thing.
But I will say, overall, those are minor nitpicks. The rest of the gameplay are it's just a lot of fun and exploring, and even the frustrating stuff of them not telling you can be fun in a lot of those aspects with the story stuff, figuring shit out and
it's
doing
not
the
hard
investigation
to figure
stuff
out. It's just
good. But yeah,
these nitpicks are more annoyances versus game breaking things. It's just I figured it out eventually. It's just annoying that you didn't tell me how to do it to begin with. It doesn't really take away from my enjoyment of the game. It's just annoying more than anything else.
The reason it annoys me is because it kind of... I wouldn't bring it up if this was, say, Assassin's Creed or something like that. But when you have those little frustrations or, you're hung up on a thing... When you're hung up on a thing for 30 seconds trying to just light a thing, it takes away from the horror because you're not scared. You're just frustratedly annoyed.
That reminds me of something. But first, I gotta say, don't put anything putting thought into a game and then putting Assassin's Creed in the same sentence. Because they don't put any.
You mean?
they don't put any thought into anything. They're like, what if Vikings? I'm like, I'm with you. And they're like, now we're gonna try to put plot in it. I'm like, I'm no longer with you. I just let me be a Viking. I don't need any of this future shit in there. But what you were saying, about the annoyances and just having to spend 30 seconds on something, it reminds me of something from that old Josh Hartnett movie. It's 40 Days and 40 Nights.
Yeah.
And the character from Joey and Road Trip and Royal Pains. I don't remember
I know who you're talking about, yeah.
But he was just you know how long I was looking for Indiana Bones in the Temple of Poon? 2 hours. That is way too long to be looking for porn. That is the exact same thing here. It's just 30 seconds is way too long for me to be trying to figure out how to do this fucking thing in your game.
Yeah, I shouldn't be yelling, God damn it, because I'm angry at a gameplay thing. I should be yelling, God damn it, because I got scared by something.
Exactly. And I'm going to hold Remedy to that because, like I said, this game is awesome and they should know better. So therefore they should know better is what I should say.
Yeah.
I've got enough bones for my Rapture coffee, enough bones of poor people for my rock. So a damn fine cup of coffee from one of the many old folks' home residents that Saga kills in that old folks' home. In that one sequence, because these are all taken. These are all people that are possessed by the dark place, and you are murdering them. So Saga and Alan are racking up bodies.
If you don't die at the amusement park as a child, you will definitely die at the old folks' home being murdered by an FBI agent. So either way, you're not going to have a peaceful death.
Hiking at Cauldron Lake or going to the fucking library. Bright Falls has a high death rate. Anyways, let's guys, enough of all this death and bones. What about those blue and yellow lights I see on the horizon, giving us that warm, comforting glow of any Friday or Saturday night when we were teenagers? Let's go to the last ever Blockbuster, probably owned by the Cascella brothers as well, and let's see if we indeed buy this VHS.
Please tell me whether or not I should just buy this VHS.
this is a section where we talk about if this game was a David Lynch directed box set that you find at like a McKay's game and DVD store. Do you buy this and put this on your shelf as a proud horror fan? And Logan, I know the answer, but I'm going to direct it to you first. Do you buy this VHS?
I'm going to go into an abandoned Blockbuster and shine my flashlight and scare off the boogans of people who didn't make it to streaming.
You see that shimmer. You see that shimmer over the rack, and you see that one spot you're supposed to shine your flashlight at.
I'm going to go past the robot jocks. I'm going to go past the bordello of blood, Tales from the Crypt, and I'm going to go find Alan Wake 2, and I'll be like, this one's coming home with me.
Yes, I too do. I pick it up, I cartwheel over to the checkout stand, and I scan it myself.
Because no employees are alive.
Yes, no employees are there. They're all taken. And I run out, I skip out to my car with this, because of course you buy this fucking game. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
They just took Alan Wake and they made it better? Like, what? Could you? And yes, they can. And they did. And they made this game. Yes, you definitely buy this.
It's also even funnier compared to like, if this is a movie, because so much of this is live action. So it's like, yeah, this is a movie and I'd like it as a movie. It's fantastic.
A movie. Did you watch like the Grindhouse movies that Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez put out? This is like the same fucking speed, only if one of those was directed by David Lynch. Oh. It's just like these guys love horror and they love survival horror video games, but they also realize they're stupid. Mm-hmm. And they just have genuine fun with it. And if you're a fan of these games, or you're a fan of horror movies or survival horror or the X-Files or anything, this is a game for you.
One thing we forgot to talk about. So when you're in the dark place, there's this other writer this other person that Alan interacts with. Who's like
Tom.
A Finnish
he was in
filmmaker.
the first game.
Yeah, he's from the first one. You find out he's a filmmaker, not a poet. You can actually watch his short movie that's like 5 minutes long, and it's a great little live action horror movie. So again, like falling into the pattern of, do you want to watch this? Yes, you watch that too. You can watch it like
you don't have to. These are just goodies for you to like. And if you guys skip through the Cascella Brothers commercials, fuck you. Fuck you. Honestly, don't skip through those.
I don't skip through those. I don't skip through the Sad Old Man podcasts, and I watched that entire weird-ass Finnish horror film with its weird fucking murder plot and everything like that. What a great little...
Yeah, god damn it. And even the talk show segments where Alan Wake is just like, what the fuck is going on? It's just,
man, those are
so
such a step up from the talk show segment of the first game, which was really kind of like cheesy and awkward. Like,
it makes me have more appreciation for that talk show scene in the first game, because now I know they're just like, they made this intentionally shitty and low budget. It's just,
There's only one aspect that's missing, and that's the sleazeball that is Barry. Because
I was going to mention that. Where the fuck is Barry? He's mentioned in like one of Alice's notes or diaries, but where the fuck is Barry? God, why is he not in the? If Barry knew that Alan was in the dark place, he would be in the dark place with him. He honestly would be.
And one of the things they mentioned that Barry like moved to LA and he's like taking care of like the property rights and he's working with Alice and stuff. But also he lost a bunch of weight and then I was like in a wellness retreat and I'm like, I want to see Barry come back swole as fuck. Like I want Dave Bautista. I want him to fucking beat the shit out of the darkness with his bare hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want him to be Dave Bautista, but be the exact same guy.
Yeah,
like he's like bettered himself, but he's still reacting the exact same way.
Yeah.
Put the DLC with Barry in the dark place in his wellness retreat. Please do that. And he's still in the LA heat wearing that goddamn puffy jacket. Please do that. Or like his dark place is just one of the many, many sexual harassment lawsuits filed against him.
With the live action thing, they could get Bautista to play him in those segments. That would be incredible.
Oh, good God. If they did. No, they need to get a Swedish guy to do it.
Get
Or a
Batista
Finnish
and then
guy.
have Swedish dub over, even though Barry does not have
Finnish,
a Swedish
yeah.
accent. Or
No.
Finnish accent, sorry.
Finnish. They're Finland, but it's Nordic is what I should say. Get one of the Skarsgårds in there to be Barry. Fuck it. Who cares? It's Alan Wake. Just do it. God damn it. This game is goddamn near perfect.
They mistake one of the Skarsgårds for being taken. It's like, no, he just normally looks like that.
Yeah, that's just Bill.
That's just
he
Bill's
just looks
normal
like
face.
Walter Skarsgård. He's a gamer. Get him in there.
Oh my
it's
God,
fine.
yeah.
It's fine. He'll do it. Put him in there. He'll do it. But yeah, well, I guess that wraps things up here, as much as I am sad that we have to wrap it up. But Logan, thank you so much for being a part of this. Why don't you favor us with some plugs? Where can we find you and what are you doing?
At the Logan Trent on socials. I'm also doing a WNBA podcast with our friend Adam Todd Brown over at
So
the
good.
Don't Even Like Podcast Network. We're gonna take not a long hiatus, but a little hiatus because it's going to be off season. But we might have some filler episodes in between. But yeah, it's a lot of fun doing that. So
who do you got right now? The Lynx or the Liberty?
Shit. I was all in on the Liberty getting
up.
revenge for the Commissioner's Cup, but the Lynx just punched them in the mouth in that game one in a way where I just don't think they're afraid at all. I think they have their number. I think the Lynx take this in maybe they lose one game, but I think the Lynx have it.
I love y'all's podcasts, and WNBA is just fun to watch.
That first game was one of the best basketball games of the year, which is saying, not including the gold medal games for the Olympics. Those were some of the most fun basketball games I've seen this year. But this game one, for a regular league game between WNBA or NBA, was one of the tops of the year. It was amazing. So yeah, check that out if you haven't.
Guys, watch it. It's fun. Kelsey and Asia got bumped out, but guys, thank you so much for listening. If you're here, my brother Tom does have a podcast network and streaming network with his buddy David Bell. It's called Gamefully Unemployed. You can find it at Patreon at Gamefully Unemployed. You can also buy merchandise from him, t-shirts, mugs, stickers, stuff like that at gamefullyunemployed.com. I believe they have a link to their Teespring website where you can find all kinds of cool shit.
If you like gaming and you like this network, check out Tom's new podcast, Batical, which is basically a fictional podcast about an incredibly ridiculous video game from the 1990s that should have happened. So, yeah, it's fantastic.
Or it did happen.
Or it did happen, yes.
Rhyme with Cordal Mombat. That he just beat the shit out of me and incessantly when we were kids. But go ahead and listen to Batical. That's awesome. You can find that wherever podcasts are bought or sold. And thank you guys so much for listening. You can find me online on the socials at Johnny Rhymes. I kind of pay attention to Twitter here and there. But you can mainly find me on Blue Sky, which is like Twitter only with less toxicity, I guess, but it's fun. But hey, Logan, thank you so much for being here. Guys, you guys have a wonderful week and we'll see you next month. Happy Halloween. Now get out of here.
Bye.